Okay, I'm just going to go on Facebook. Oops. Got my phone here. Okay. Just waiting for people to turn up. Well, I got a couple people turning up so far. I'm on YouTube and Facebook. I'm always filming all my videos. All my lives are saved on YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, the reason I'm never looking at you is because my social media are my big platforms, not YouTube, and not yet anyway. And so I'm always sort of answering the bigger platforms here. So, and I go from Facebook to Instagram to TikTok. Okay, so what time is it? It's 1 o'clock on Saturday here in Vancouver. I'm not usually on at this time. It's a gorgeous day. I am planning on getting on my bike soon. So I just want to get this live done. Then I'm going to have to answer my emails, and then I'll head out on my bike. So run some errands. Okay, so I'll wait till I get a couple more people before I get going. While we're waiting, I'd love to know where you're from. As I said, I'm here in Vancouver, Canada. Gorgeous weather right now. Where are you from? From the Philippines. Hello, Philippines. Never been there. Oh, I always say I'm going to get everywhere one day, but I don't know. I don't seem to get on a plane very often. I just find traveling a lot of work. Plus, I'm allergic to pretty much every single food. I can't imagine having an attack and trying to find an emergency room all around the world. So yeah, it's a bit of a gamble for me to travel. Cincinnati. Hello, Cincinnati. Irish living in Norway. I'm half Norwegian. But it was funny because when I was adopted and I was told I was French and Irish, and turns out I'm French and Norwegian, but I always thought I was Irish. And so I always had a little bit of the Irish in me. I don't say that anymore. Turns out I got no Irish in me. Morocco. Hi, Morocco. Okay, so let's get going. We got enough people here. I don't know how many people I'm going to get on here because it's a weird time. And anyway, okay, so my name is Lisa Bunnage. I'm a parenting coach. If you go on the link above, you can see my free behavior board, my mini toddler courses, my big boot camp course, or you can look into coaching. I do have a wait list right now for coaching, but a whole bunch of spots have recently opened up because I've finished with some clients. So anyway, let's get going with your parenting questions, and I'll do my best to answer. First time here from MO. Is that Missouri? Montana. It's not Missouri, is it? It's Montana. Must be Montana. It's Missouri. MI. Or is that Michigan? Sorry. Okay, so I'm just waiting for your parenting questions. In the meantime, I'll read out a few things that I like to throw in here. Everyone asks me about discipline, but it's a tiny part of what I teach. It is Missouri. Okay, sorry. What would Montana be then? MN? I don't know. Okay. Anyway, this is my top 5 tips for parenting toddlers. Number 1 is you child-proof your home so you never have to say no. Number 2 is you set up a toy rotation system so they're never bored. Number 3 is when you want to connect with a toddler, you do so in their world. You don't go to the nail salon with them. You go to the park and roll down the hill. They just start to look at you differently when you get good at this. And number 4 is when you want to discipline a toddler, again, you do so in their world. They're not about words, they're about actions. And they only live in the moment, right now, in the present. So it has to be consistent corrective actions. As soon as they've done something naughty, you've got to take action right away. You just say no and you remove the fun from them or them from the fun, just for a couple minutes or whatever. And then number 5 is stop trying to figure them out. Toddlers are not figure outable. They're brand new, fresh human beings. They're just forming. They might even go like this and smear poop on the wall. Is that normal? Well, yeah, for a toddler, it might be. They just don't have the concept of a lot of stuff yet. So I always call toddlers crazy. It's just that they haven't developed sanity yet. Okay. So let's get going. I got a question here. I'm in MO, Missouri. Okay, so you're on Facebook and YouTube. Someone took, geez, that happens a lot. Message retracted from Daisy Hazel. I was just going to answer your question. And then it disappeared. People do that a lot on YouTube, and I don't know why. Wonder why that is. Anyway, okay. Ideas for consequences other than household chores. It can be anything. It can be giving you a neck massage, brushing your hair. It can be, I don't know. Like it doesn't really matter what the consequence is. It's just something a little bit negative. It doesn't have to be awful. Something that they have to do something that they don't want to do. But yeah, and then it has to be an action. That's the positive action one. Then if they won't do that, then you resort to the negative deprivation. You take something away. So you want them to do something like a good deed. Usually it's just a chore. Do a good deed. Someone had their kid write out an apology as the consequence. I don't like that. I don't want to have to explain why, because it's a very long answer. It's all psychology and all that stuff. Not that I'm great at it, but I think I know what I'm talking about with this stuff. But yeah, I don't like that one. It's almost in the shaming department. Yeah. A neck massage. I love that. I'm definitely winning there. Good. Okay. I love my kids. If they did something, I would say, like, they forgot to do a chore or something, they'd say, oh, sorry, mommy, I forgot to make my bed. How about no TV tonight? And I said, nah, just brush my hair for 5 minutes. I've never had anyone in my whole life, I'm 63 years old, who likes brushing hair. It's like, I love having my hair brushed. I don't even like brushing my hair. I just can't, because it's curly. And anyway, so yeah, but that's what I would do. My kids would brush my hair for 5 minutes and we'd chat. It's fun for me. Do we apply the same techniques in public as we do at home when our daughter is kicking and hitting us? Yes, you do if she's a toddler. It has to be right in the moment. Be proud of yourself when you're taking charge. Don't be embarrassed by it. Don't try and avoid the scene. The scene is where the lessons are. Parents are always saying, how do I stop them from doing that? You don't. They will eventually stop doing it on their own. That's the self-discipline part. So you don't stop them from doing the naughty stuff. You have a consequence after they've done it. Okay, don't try and prevent it. The only way to prevent that stuff is by giving them whatever they want, even if you don't want to. Okay, you're so helpful. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. You're very welcome. I've only ever taught 3 things in my life. One is parenting, one is fitness, and one is sewing. Aside from that, I could teach cleaning too. I love cleaning. Couldn't teach cooking. Gosh, no. Jeez, that'd be a nightmare. Anyway. So yeah, we all have something we can share, right? So yeah, I don't teach the other stuff anymore. I remember once, years and years ago, I had a student in sewing, and she was a darling young girl. Where was she from? The Bahamas or something. No, I think it was Jamaica or something. She just was adorable. Anyway, and so she put the fabric in the sewing machine and hit the pedal and then just let go. She thought the sewing machine was going to do everything for her. I don't think she ended up making anything, maybe a pillowcase. When you're doing the behavior board for a week to focus on one bad behavior, do you still give consequences for bad behavior? Do you still give it for bad behavior not on the board? You do whatever you were doing before, okay? But don't mix up that behavior board with anything else. So don't use the consequences on the behavior board for other bad behavior. The whole idea behind this is you're learning one step at a time. You're just learning one bad behavior at a time, how to deal with that. The idea is by the time you get to the 3rd week, the other bad behaviors should start to drop away because you're starting to exercise your leadership skills. Week 4 in the boot camp course, it's very different. Week 4, we go off the behavior boards and we deal with everything right. I call it in the moment discipline. You deal with everything right in the moment. But yeah, so you deal with everything in week 4. That's not just on the free behavior board, but anyway, so you kind of have to build up to that. And also, if they know that you're dealing with one thing on there, they often get worse with everything else. That's okay. Just fumble through whatever you're doing before, but just really master that behavior board. And then by week 2, you'll have 2 of them. You're starting to get confidence and leadership skills. They're watching you. What about when the consequence is not so clear, like when they constantly throw a toy and you can take it away? For example, what do you do when the toddler keeps screaming and crying out loud and refuses to stop? I don't quite know what you mean by that. I don't know what you mean by that. Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure what the question is there. How do you handle constant screaming and whining from a 3-year-old? You just ignore attitude, basically. And you say to them, with whining, I would say, if you ask like this, I'm not going to answer you. But if you ask like this, may I please have, I will answer you, but the answer may still be no, but I will answer you. So you got to tell them that ahead of time. You don't just ignore whining. You got to tell them, I don't like that. The screaming, you just go, whatever, and walk away. Yeah, you got to walk away from screaming. It's in the attitude department. We never address attitude. Attitude takes care of itself once you're a leader. It happens organically. Attitude is the last thing to correct itself. It's the last thing. Bad attitude means they don't respect you. You got to earn that. You got to work for that. I worked my butt off to get respect with kids. I didn't expect to have it handed to me. If they had a bad attitude towards me, I always thought, what am I doing here? What am I doing wrong? What am I missing? Right? That's my fault. It's on you. If they've got a bad attitude, that's on you. That's your fault. Take full responsibility for that. I did it with kids I wasn't even working with. If they had a bad attitude with me, that was my fault. I'm not a leader. So yeah, take full responsibility. That's the best news you can hear. It means you have control over their attitude, right? But you don't try and stop it. You set yourself up as a leader, and then it will stop. You get the difference. Everyone wants to fix their kids. That's ridiculous. You don't fix kids. You set yourself up as a leader, right? You're not fixing kids. I'm teaching parents here. I teach parenting. You lead, they will follow. They just naturally look up to a leader. You're like a mentor. You're someone that they look up to. You make them feel good about themselves. When you've got all that going for you, why would they have an attitude with you? I always get an itchy nose when I'm doing these lives. I don't know why. Oh, it is hay fever season. I did a sneeze at the gym the other day, just about blew my cap off. You know, in a gym, I work like in a muscle gym, and there's a lot of weights and big guys. And you hear weights dropping all the time, like they'll just drop the bar with all the weights on it. It's just, you know, they like doing that. And but literally, my sneeze made them jump. None of these weights dropping made them jump, but my sneeze was so bad. Anyway, I'm just yabbering on. What can you do if your kid refuses? Oh, shoot, I got to go back away. So I can't find you. I started. Oh, here we go. Melissa, what can you do if your kid refuses to pick up their toys? The kids are 2 and 4. Well, not much. I mean, you're asking them to do a chore. Yeah, there's so many different ways I could go about this. With the 4-year-old, they can go on the behavior board and you can put down the rule is pick up 10 toys within 10 minutes of being asked to do so and give them a basket. The 2-year-old, you don't expect a 2-year-old to do chores. That's kind of silly. So just they're watching you with the 4-year-old that you're encouraging and you're going along. Give the 2-year-old a basket and see if they join in. So yeah, don't expect a 2-year-old to do chores. How do you handle a 4-year-old who picked up a bad word? Use the behavior board and put down no bad words. And when they do, there's a consequence. That's an easy one. Also, kids will fudge this and try and get around it. And they'll go, oh, one of my clients yesterday, the kid's not allowed to say the F word. So what they said, because they were saying it before, so what they started saying was F word. So they're not saying the word, but they're saying F word. So I said, next, tell them that in future, that will be considered swearing. Anytime you're hinting at a swear word or a bad word. So yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. I hadn't heard that one before. Usually they'll go, fun. You know what I mean? Like they'll start and they'll kind of pull you in. I would punish for that too. I'd say anytime you hint at a bad word, but tell them ahead of time. No bad words or no hinting at bad words. It prevents that manipulation. Okay, not sure if this is your area. Oh, good. I love questions like that. Okay, I'm trying to cope with my parenting style in a foreign country that doesn't understand my methods, and I get judged for it. I'm a single mom to 6-year-old girl. I have to parallel parent as other parent is only in the picture 20% of the time. He moved 4 hours away and I have 0. Okay. That's kind of an interesting question for me because I raised my kids in Australia. It's a little bit different there. I'll be honest, I kind of preferred it, parenting in Australia to Canada, just because there was so much heavy involvement in school over in Australia. They rely very heavily on parent in participation, whereas over here, it just wouldn't work. But yeah, so I preferred it over there. But I had to respect the culture. There are certainly some things that are a little bit different. And I respected that. But still, I didn't give up my own values. So yeah, don't apologize for the way you parent. You don't have to answer to anybody. Yeah, if you know you're doing the right thing, why would you worry about what other people think? I remember once, this is kind of a long story, but it's the only time anyone ever tried to tell me how to parent, because I was very confident, so people just didn't tell me how to parent. This month, my son was labeled gifted, but he was only gifted with like problem solving and that. It's not like he was, 2 years old and discussing politics. You know what I mean? When they're gifted, they're usually gifted in certain areas. Anyway, and I never put any emphasis on it. I kept him mainstreamed. I refused to accelerate him. And anyway, that caused some problem in high school. He was segregated, which I disagreed with. But anyway, so this mother also had a gifted child. She was fighting to get him. My son was offered this huge scholarship when he was 3 years old, like to some special gifted school. I thought, just talk about handicapping a child. Like I'd mess him up for life if I did that. She was mad at me because I turned it down, and she would have loved to have got her son in it. And she goes, what does she say to me? Your responsibility as the mother of a gifted child is to give them every advantage. And it was funny because my kid was such a polite little boy, and he was very well balanced. Anyway. And he was just standing there doing whatever. And he was about 3. And her little boy was gnawing on her ankle. I thought, yeah, he's gifted, all right. Here she was talking about gifted as if it was just this special child. And he was gnawing on her ankle. And but she didn't focus on the behavior. She focused on this gifted part. So yeah, she had that all messed up. I could have cared less what she thought. How do you repair or apologize when losing your temper? I don't know how old they are. I don't know what the situation is. So, but use the behavior board, put no yelling as your rule. Or you can even put down no losing temper, which encompasses a whole bunch of stuff. And then you have to make amends. There's a consequence. But I don't know how old they are. Oh, it's pretty slow here on Facebook. My real big platforms are Instagram and TikTok with lives. So I might move over there now just to get more action going, because I've got a lot to do, and I'm, just kind of killing time if there's no questions. Anyway, I'm going to move over to Instagram now. If you want to join me over there, it's Bratbusters Parenting. Thanks so much for watching. Check out the link above. It's you can get my free behavior board. You can get my mini toddler courses, my big boot camp course, or you can look into coaching. Happy parenting. Bye now. Yeah, I'm on at a really weird time. That's why it was slow. Did something weird this time. Don't know why. Anyway, it's on. So people turn out usually within 10 seconds. I get a lot of people here. So let's see what happens. Okay, so got about 150. Okay, so let's get going with your parenting questions. My name's Lisa. I'm a parenting coach. If you go on the link above, you can get my free behavior board, my mini toddler courses, my big boot camp course, or you can look into coaching. I'm also on YouTube at the same time. That's where all of my lives are saved. Okay, so let's get going. Holland. Hi, Holland. I was there in 1980. I was 20 years old. The Netherlands. How do I help my 3-year-old from talking back? You don't. That's in the attitude department. It's a tell. It means they don't respect you. That's all that says to me. So you've got to work on your leadership skills, and the attitude takes care of itself. The sass, the back talk, the arguing, all that stuff takes care of itself. Once you're a leader, you got to earn that. That's the only way you can get rid of talking back, is by setting yourself up as a leader. You might want to check out my boot camp course. That's more inclusive. You can get the free behavior board. You can start there, but the boot camp course is next level. Teaches you how to be a leader. You can correct an 18-month-old, but they're not going to learn the first time. They might learn 50 times or 100 after the 50th time, but you redirect them and then you remove, what are they doing wrong? Like you kind of remove it. I'm going to read out my top 5 tips for parenting toddlers. This is how you manage the environment and manage yourself. The toddler, they're kind of crazy anyway. So, okay. Top 5 tips for parenting toddlers. This is under the age of 3. Number 1, childproof your home so you never have to say no. Number 2, set up a toy rotation system so they're never bored. Number 3 is enter their world to connect with them. You don't go to the nail salon with a 2-year-old. You go to the park and roll down the hill with them. They look at you differently when you enter their world. Number 4 is you stop with the mini therapy sessions when you are disciplining a toddler. They are not about words. They're about actions. You use consistent corrective actions right in the moment. They have to connect the bad behavior with the consequence. And the consistent corrective action is removing the fun from them or them from the fun. And if they're really little, you might even do some indirect redirecting. What I mean by that is you don't say, let's go over here. You just go somewhere and start playing and see if they join in. But anyway, where was I? Oh, the mini therapy sessions, discussing all their big feelings and big emotions. That is absolute garbage. These are 2-year-olds we're talking about. They do not need a therapy session. That was invented to make the mom feel good about herself. It has nothing to do with the toddler. They're about actions, okay? Not about mini therapy sessions. I'm up against that every single day in coaching. Anyway, well, people hire me because they know I hate that stuff because they said, that wasn't working. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Okay, number 5 is stop trying to figure them out. Toddlers are not figure-outable. They're brand new, fresh human beings. They've only been in the world for a couple of years. And the first year, they were a potato laying on a mattress. They've just got one marble and some tumbleweed floating around in here. Okay, those are my top 5 tips. Okay, so you got a toddler laughing at you when you say no. They're just testing you. They don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, they're just testing you. If it bothers you, they're going to keep doing it. If you ignore it, they're going to stop doing it. 2-year-old back talks, you don't say that. Well, why are you saying stuff? Like, just ignore it. Go whatever and walk away. Just ignore that back talk. They only do what works generally, past the age of 4 especially, but they're starting to learn when they're little. Cape Town. Hi, Cape Town. Never been there. How to stop tantrums? Don't. You don't stop tantrums. They will learn to stop having them over a period of time so long as you effectively ignore them. Check out my tantrum course. It's called Tantrum Busting. It's my mini toddler course. I've got 4 of them. Tantrums, biting and hitting, potty training, and bedtime. Yeah, check that out. Tantrums you're not going to stop them overnight. The only way to stop a tantrum is to give them everything they want all the time. And why would you do that? A tantrum is a loss of emotional control at not getting their own way. It's not because they feel misunderstood. And parents tend to explain and try and explain everything to a toddler. It's ludicrous. It's a loss of emotional control at not getting their own way. It has nothing to do with feeling misunderstood. That is a giant misconception. A toddler, if they get what they want and they feel misunderstood, they could give a hoot, right? They got what they want. Do they care that you understand them? No, they got what they want. So that's all it is. And they'll eventually learn they can't always have what they want. It's hard for some toddlers to understand that. Some of them are more laid back. They just accept things easier. Others don't. I want that and I want it now. And I'm going to have a fit if I don't get it. Go, fine. Have at it. Let them work that out. How to get a 3-year-old to sleep in his own bed. That's a whole process, and it's an ugly one. I deal with this, I would say, several times a week in coaching. I've got at least two or three clients doing bedtime battles, they would have done it last night. So yeah, check out my bedtime battles course. It's a whole process. 2 parts, how to get them in bed, then how to keep them there. Getting them in bed is easy. Keeping them there is the challenge. I expect a night of sheer hell. It is by far, of everything I teach, I would say one of the most contentious issues with parents is bedtime battles, and one of the easiest for us to solve. If the parents follow through with this, I don't think I've ever had a client that this didn't work with. Not that I can remember. They haven't told me. But yeah, bedtime battles. It's a nightmare that first night. Might only be one night though. Okay, do you recommend physical consequences for bad behavior, like running laps or push-ups, 4-year-old boy? Absolutely not. I think I don't do it. I would never do that. Never, never, never. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. I'm not comfortable discussing that, but I would never do it. Sort of a torture, isn't it? Yeah. Regards from Mexico. Hi, Mexico. I have yet to visit Mexico without getting the Montezuma's revenge. Is there a way around that? I've taken all the medication. Oh God. It's like one day off. I always try and go down. If I go down there, I go down longer than I want, just because I need at least a day or two to be sick. So never been able to avoid that. Yeah, I don't know why I talk about stuff like that on here. I don't have a filter. I just say what I'm thinking. I love Mexico. How to handle physical arguing among students. Oh, I don't teach teaching. I only teach parenting. Not everything crosses over. Huge portion of my clients are teachers, principals, child psychologists. I couldn't do their jobs, which are businesses. Parenting's personal, home-based personal. They're different. Some stuff crosses over. A lot doesn't. So, and even when I was working with kids, it was only volunteer work. I was always in schools, detention centers, psych wards, hospitals, in homes. I got some clearance to go in homes through the government, daycare centers. It was all volunteer work. Even back then, yeah, it was, I mothered them. There was no other role that I did other than mothering. So when I was working with kids. I remember once I was, anyway, I was working with troubled teenagers. And the role that I went in as was a tutor. And we all knew it was for behavior, but it was just, in order to get me in there, it was like a learning tutor. And the teenagers figured out pretty quick. They said, this must be about my behavior because you suck at all this math and everything. I said, you got that one right. Oh, it's funny. Slovakia. Hello, Slovakia. Okay, how can we make our partners part of this coaching if they don't want to be? We're a team a lot of the time. I can't help you how to manage your partner. But I'll tell you, this has happened more than you would think. I'm often just hired by one parent. Sometimes it's the dad, it's usually the mom. And I'm hired to help. And then the father's often sitting back like this. And I'm like, gee, I wonder who wanted to hire me. And anyway, so then I just say to him, do you want to be on the board or not? And just level with me. And he'll go, not really. And I say, fine, then don't be on it. No judgment, just don't be on it. Because if you're not going to follow through, I don't want you on there. So anyway, you know what's funny? A lot of those dads have hired me behind their wives' back, because they start to see the relationship the mother's getting with the kids, because the leader is the prized role. You become the best friend. You become the one they tell everything to. You become the one they respect the most. So the other parent often wants that. So yeah, but that's all I can say. If they don't want to do it, you can't force them. But I'd say, let's cut a deal here. Give me 3 weeks with this. If it doesn't work, then we can do it your way, or just toss it. And what's my biggest stumbling block when I'm coaching is by far the hardest thing for me in coaching is battling the parents' emotions, especially with teenagers. They're often very mad and very resentful, have a lot of real hatred towards their teenagers sometimes. Understandably, they're teenagers of, some of them have even physically, harmed their parents. I mean, there's some real resentment. That is by far the biggest challenge I have in coaching, is trying to sidestep the parents' emotions. I just say, look, they're never going to serve you. So I know they're in there, but you're going to have to bottle them up and pretend they're not there. But that is by far the most challenging thing about learning how to be a leader, is to not get emotionally involved when you're disciplining, and also not hold that resentment towards your kids, especially when they're older. I understand it's human, but you're the parent, you're the leader, you have to take the high road. Even if they're on the low road, that's even more important for you to be on the high road. Okay, I'm going to scroll ahead because, oh God, so many questions, because I want to make sure you're still here while I answer. Because even though I've only got like a couple hundred people here right now, people come and go. So, because I didn't even know that till about a month ago. I thought, I only had a couple hundred people in the live. And then I'll look and I've had like several thousand, but it's because they come and go. So that's why I do scroll through all your questions and skip a lot. Sorry about that, but just what I do. Copenhagen, hello. A 2-year-old hits her dad or will randomly kick him. She doesn't. Okay, maybe he's the playmate with no limits or boundaries. Could that be it? So if she does kick, he tries to lighten it. That's often the way. I don't know. That's just one of the reasons it could be happening. So he's the playmate with no boundaries or limits, or doesn't know how to get boundaries and limits. Like as soon as she hits a kicks, I would say no and I'd get up and walk away if I were him. How do I stop a toddler from jumping on my bed? Why does he have access to your bed then? I'd put a childproof thing on the doorknob. Don't give them access to something, just childproof, you know? That's it's sort of like putting chocolate in front of a toddler, and saying he won't leave it alone. He's going to eat it. You know, if you put something out there, you try to childproof as much as possible. You can't do it with everything, but try to eliminate as much temptation as possible before. And then when they get older, they'll understand no. And if they do it, there's a consequence. Okay, so you got a 2-year-old hitting himself when they get angry. Yeah, they're going to do that. Just say no and then physically restrain him just for a minute or two, and then let go. If he starts up again, say no, but don't look at him or talk to him while he's doing it. Like when you're doing this, just ignore him. Let him work through it himself. If you interrupt the pattern of them learning how to get through their own anger, you're going to prolong it. Okay. The sooner they learn how to get themselves out of these scenes, these fits, these meltdowns, these tantrums, the sooner they learn to do this on their own without your intervention, the better. Parents keep wanting to get involved. Well, you know, let's talk about your feelings and give mommy a hug and all that. They're not learning anything. If anything, you're making it worse. Any attention is tantrum food. You're fertilizing it if you give it any attention. I've got a tantrum course if you're interested. Plus, I've done a million videos on tantrums. If you look on here, just under tantrums, I'm sure they come up. I know on TikTok, I used to do my own social media on TikTok. So I know I have a toddler section. Did I get rid of my playlists? I can't remember. And my daughter does all my social media now. So, but I know I have a whole bunch of stuff on tantrums, or I do have the tantrum course. It's one of my mini courses called Tantrum Busting. How do you stop a 2-year-old from breastfeeding? You just don't offer the breast. What I did with my kid, my daughter, my son weaned himself. He just wanted the freedom. Like he loved the bottle. He could just look around. He used to pull my boob with him. Oh my God. Anything that would happen, any noise. I used to pray to God there'd be no street noise or anything when I was breastfeeding him, because he would just rip my nipple away just to look. Whereas my daughter was just cuddled right in. She would have breastfed forever. Anyway, I just said, no more. Here's a sippy cup. No more booby or whatever I called it. I can't remember. No more. And I did it when we were away on holidays. And so I never provided a lap. So I did it when my husband was around. So he was around 24/7. And I never provided her with a lap. I never sat down, or if I did and I saw her coming for me, I got up. I would just, I forgot to do that. And, there was no discussing it really. I just had said, no more, all gone. Also, I wore different clothes, so she couldn't get access. Because, they always have access. Usually they know how to get in there. But yeah, that's what I did. So, and I replaced it with brand new sippy cups. So you give them something to replace it with. Don't just take something away. Replace it with something that you want them to have. She was fine with it. It was just, I just remember though, sitting down because I was tired, right? I have a bad back, so I used to have to relax a lot, especially after kids. My back was really bad. Anyway, and I can remember I'd sit down and go, whew, I'm tired. And I'd see her coming for me. So I'd have to stand up because I didn't want her to have to grab at me and feel bad. I didn't want to have to reject her. So, hi from Texas. Hi, Texas. At what age do you parenting? Okay. Very good question. At what age do let's say my leadership stuff, does it really come into play? I would say by about 3. That's when they can stop and think before they act. It's happening before that, but you don't really see it until they're about 3. And I'll tell you how I know it happens even when they're babies, because my husband, when the kids started rolling in that, I was definitely the leader. He was more the pleaser. And it's usually the way it is, right? He didn't want to discipline. I loved it. Like that was my role. So, but anyway, when they were babies, they'd be rolling on the change table. They didn't do that with me because they learned when mom said, I'm going to change your nappy, I was going to change it. It was just going to happen. Whereas dad would more likely to say, oh, do you want this? Or do you want me to tell you a story first? He was sort of trying to please them. And that's the pleaser style. That's where that comes in. Whereas I didn't do it. I just said, we're going to change your diaper, and nappy in Australia where I raised them. We're going to change your diaper. And then I just did it. So they learned very quickly from a very young age. I was the leader. They just learn that very quickly. Doesn't mean they're not still going to do crazy stuff because they're toddlers. They're just forming. But by the age 3, my kids were pretty much self-disciplining by 3. It just took a look from me. That was all it took. Or I might say, you might want to rethink what you're about to do. And they'd go, oops. Oops, where am I? Am I still on Instagram? I've got to move over. I got to move over to TikTok because I got stuff to do. So I'm going to move over to TikTok. I'm still on Instagram, aren't I? Because I can't tell the difference between any of these lives. All the lives look exactly the same to me. Anyway, I'm going to move over to TikTok now. If you want to join me over there, it's Bratbusters Parenting. If not, check out the link above. You can get my free behavior board, my mini toddler courses, my big boot camp course, or you can look into coaching. I do have a wait list for coaching, but Instagram, thank you. But I've just opened up a whole bunch of spots because I just finished with a bunch of clients. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me. I'm on YouTube the whole time, and now I'm heading over to TikTok. Happy parenting. Okay, I'm going to look at the YouTube questions now. Daisy keeps retracting everything, so I have a problem that they don't listen to me, even if I put them in a corner or stickers don't help. You're using the timeout and the reward chart, two things I can't stand. I would never do timeout. I think it's mean and humiliating, and it doesn't teach them a darn thing. The sticker reward chart says you're normally rotten. If you should happen to be good, you'll get a sticker. They don't care about it. So yeah, neither one of those work. Just keep following me, and I teach completely different stuff from that. So yeah, you're using the timeout and the reward chart, both things I can't stand. Would never do either. Okay. Oh, someone said, you didn't ask a question, you just say autistic. Yeah, I only discuss autism in one-on-one coaching with me. Check out the link in my description on YouTube or the link in my bio here on TikTok if you're interested. It was just on Instagram. Hi, Leslie. I remember as a child, I had a cousin. I still have a cousin named Les, but growing up, I was a little kid. I was younger than all my cousins. And so I called him Leslie. And I was so little, I could remember being confused that other people would call my cousin Leslie Les. I didn't understand it. And I was trying to communicate. Why do other people not call him by his real name? I could still remember, I must have been like 2. I could still remember that, but I didn't know how to communicate and how to ask that. Anyway. It's funny, how kids, I can remember a lot from when I was little because I was always trying to figure everything out. My daughter was like that. We were just born old. We were born old women. We just weren't little kids really. Like never had tantrums or anything. And my daughter was always trying to figure stuff out too. But I can remember a lot about being really little. Do you recommend any deep breathing or self-regulation techniques? No, I don't. But it's not like a hard no. It's just I don't teach them. So I think there's more effective ways that I deal with stuff that I'm comfortable with. I only teach from my own personal experience, and it doesn't mean that everything else is not good, like, in my opinion. It's just I only teach what I know. It's kind of like dieting. I know what works for me, and I do it. It doesn't mean there aren't other great diets out there, but I eat a certain way, and I parent it a certain way. I've got my paths that work for me. So that's all I teach. I only teach through my own experience. I have never read a book on parenting or kids, nor do I know what anyone else is teaching other than what my clients have told me. And we don't go into it really. I'm solution-based, not yesterday problem-based. Do the techniques work if the child has trauma from abuse? Okay, there's never a problem with being a leader for a child. Now, most of the kids I worked with did have problems, okay? And plus, I used to specialize in crisis work when I first started my business, especially with teenagers. There was a lot of trauma. And most of what I teach, the leadership stuff, is about connecting with and bonding with them. So that's never wrong. But if you've got trauma and there's been abuse and all that, then that would be coaching. I don't really discuss that. But I always still set parents up as a leader, always. But there's certain things that we have to do on the side also. If they have PTSD or just have been abused, I've worked with a lot of kids who've been abused. And there's other stuff that we do. I can't go into it here. That would be coaching. My 7-year-old son acts like a teenager, doesn't cry, scream, and doesn't listen. Well, that's not really a teenager. Anyway, but Yeah, I don't quite know what your question is, though. Okay, do you respond differently to a tantrum when it's around mealtime and they're hungry? You meet their needs and manage their wants. Okay, if they're hungry, cold, sick, tired, I feed them, I get them to bed, I give them medicine, right? So if they're having a tantrum because they're hungry, I'm not standing there ignoring them. I'm fighting to get them in the high chair or whatever so I can feed them. So you meet their needs and you manage their wants. Whenever I'm talking about discipline, it's about managing the wants. The first priority is meeting their needs. Like I had a client a few weeks ago and she goes, should I still do the behavior board when we're all sick? I said, absolutely not. Just give them whatever they want when they're sick. If they want ice cream at 2 o'clock in the morning and they've got a fever, I would give it to them. You know, I can't recommend that because I'm not a doctor, but you know what I mean? You meet their needs first and then you manage their wants. How to handle a toddler only wanting mom. Well, whenever a child shows a preference, it's usually because they figure they're going to get away with more with the other, or they are more attached to one at the moment. Okay. Nothing wrong with that. But I'll give you a good example of how I handled that. If my kid's dad was giving them a bath and they would say, oh, we want mom. I told my husband, I said, just say, well, you're stuck with me and keep giving them a bath. Like, don't give it any credence. Right. So then if they said it again, I would have yelled out from the family room, I said, you're stuck with dad, deal with it. They just would have gone, okay. Like, in other words, I don't feed that, you know. How do you handle outbursts with children with ODD? ODD isn't really a thing. Oppositional defiant disorder was a term that was made for, doctors made it up to make moms feel better, which is ridiculous because then it absolves you of responsibility for handling your children. It's ridiculous. Anyway, there is no ODD. But yeah, that's just check out everything I'm talking about is about disciplining kids whenever people ask me stuff, but it's more about connecting. And with toddlers, I do have some mini toddler courses. If your child is 3 and over, you can check out the boot camp course. But yeah, inventing ODD was the worst things doctors ever did because it just absolved mothers it made them feel better. That's why they did it. But it also absolved them of responsibility of handling their children's behavior. Oh, he's got ODD, nothing I can do about it. See? Yeah, just forget about ODD. And doctors have told me it's not a thing. So I didn't make that up. I always knew it wasn't, but doctors have oppositional defiant disorder. What the heck does that mean? You mean you got a feisty kid? But parents are using it as an excuse to not discipline and not handle their children. That's the problem with it. How to handle meltdowns when they don't want to leave the park and run away. That's the transition stuff. So you give them a little bit of warning first. We're going to be leaving the park in 5 minutes. Okay. Okay. Time to go. They have a fit. Drag them out if you have to, and then ignore them. Don't let them go back on that swing, whatever you do. You can let them drop and tantrum wherever they are. If they try and run back, stop them and let them drop and tantrum. And you're just standing there filing your nails, waiting. As soon as they're done, oh, y'all done? Okay, let's go. It's something that they have to get used to on their own. You can't help them with that. Okay, they're going to have to adjust to the fact that they can't stay at the park till 2 a.m. You see what I mean? It's all part of the process. Never try and avoid a fit, scene, tantrum, or meltdown because that is where the lessons are. That's the gold. It's like that 8-year-old kid that I'd never met before, and I was asked to work with him. I was told he's a handful. He was. And he said to me, I just met him. He's 8 years old, and he says, if you don't give me what I want, I'm going to have a fit. And I said to him, bring it on. And he never did. He thought, oh, she knows what she's doing. I have zero fear of a fit. Are you kidding me? That's gold. That's gold for me because I know that's my opportunity to exercise my leadership by not reacting to it at all. Like, you have no power over me. You think a fit's going to drop my leadership role? Are you kidding me? Good luck with that. So yeah, they learn. They just pick up on that energy. Oh, she knows what she's doing. He never had a fit. Not only that, he was really good with me. The worse the kid's behavior when I worked with kids, the quicker they are for me to get their respect. You know why? When they come up against a strong leader, a calm leader, it's almost like they go like this. Oh, finally. Phew, that's what they're screaming for. That's why they're so difficult. They're looking for leadership. They don't know how to articulate that, but that is what they're doing. If you're not a leader for your children at home, what did you say? I love that. Notes. What notes is that? I'm just looking at this cute little picture of notes. The emoji. Anyway, if you're not a leader for your children at home, you're going to send them out in the world very vulnerable to peer pressure, bullying, the drug dealer on the corner, the internet, the Kardashians. You get the idea. They're going to go searching for leadership elsewhere because it's a natural instinct for a child to need a leader. They feel calmer. They're more polite. They're nicer. They have higher self-esteem. They like themselves when they're with a leader. A leader brings out the best in them. A leader makes them like themselves. Your goal as a leader is to make your children like themselves. They don't like themselves when they're acting out and being rude. They feel horrible. You don't want your children to feel awful about themselves, but a leader brings out the best in children because you guide them into making good choices. You don't tell them what to do. Like I never told my kids what to do. I guided them into making good choices. And then there's the pride. If you're always telling them what to do, you're just managing them. Where's the pride? There is none. If they're just being obedient soldiers, there's no pride in that. None. So yeah, you want them to make their own good choices. You want them to like themselves. That's your goal. It doesn't, I never, when I was working with kids, my goal wasn't for them to like me. My goal was for them to like themselves. And then they end up liking me anyway, as a result of that. You're naturally drawn to someone who makes you feel good about yourself. That was my superpower. I was able to make kids feel good about themselves. Therefore, they respected me, right? Think about it. If someone makes you feel good about yourself, don't you kind of naturally, aren't you kind of nice to them? Don't you want to be around them? Don't you look up to them? Don't you want to please them? Kind of, you know, even as adults, they're no different. Kids are no different from us. They just manifest behavior differently. When do I start acting like a leader? When they're babies. It's just different when they're babies. You give them you meet their needs and meet their wants when they're babies. But if they bite or something, I would still say no. And then I would make sure they don't bite me again. And then I would distract them. So I wouldn't just take a bite and laugh and all, you know, I would say no. I'd let them know. But you never want to discipline a baby and make them cry. You want them to go like they're kind of confused by what you're doing. You want them to learn, but they're going to keep doing it for a while if they are biters. The only time I ever really yelled at my kids and it was just total by accident. My son bit down on my boob when he was breastfeeding once. And I just let out this howl. Geez, it hurt. Oh, like I was not prepared. And it was bleeding and it was awful and it scared the heck out of him. But I didn't mean it. I just screamed like it was just, the poor kid, oh my God, it took forever to calm him down and me. Oh, God. Okay, came across your page and we've put things in place and it's worked an absolute treat. Thank you. You're very welcome. You know, I always say, I just give you the advice. You're the ones who do it. So pat yourselves on the back. Whenever I'm working with clients, they're very quick to tell me what they're doing wrong. But after they get some successes under their belt, I say, well, let's celebrate the wins here and let's just not talk about the fails. But I have to keep pointing out they are learning, but they get frustrated because their kids are still doing stuff that's, you know, naughty things. And I say, yeah, but look what you've solved. You solved bedtime battles. The tantrums are finished. They're not hitting anymore. And yet you're upset because they're not putting the laundry in the machine. You know, like I got to give you some perspective, you know, like celebrate the wins, learn from them and move forward. What got you into parent coaching? It was actually the troubled teens I worked with were the ones who told me to do this. And I didn't do it for years later. Like I didn't know they just said, you got to teach this stuff, Lisa, because no one's ever talked to us like you have. And one of the teens said to me, I didn't like myself until I met you. I thought, wow, what a compliment that was one of the nicest things anyone ever said to me. Anyway, it was them. But I was volunteering in daycare centers when I was 11 years old. I always had this innate need to mother. I remember as a toddler, I found an earthworm on the pavement. So I thought, I was like 2. I can still remember taking it inside, putting it in a little blanket. I don't know what else I did, but anyway, I was trying to, and it dried up the next morning and died. I was horrified. I thought I was mothering this earthworm. Anyway, I killed that poor thing. It's all dried up. Anyway, yeah, it still bothers me because isn't that funny not because I killed an earthworm so much, which I'm not big on killing anything, but I remember the emotion that I'd killed this thing. But I always had that mothering instinct. And even when I was volunteering in the daycare center at 11, the daycare ladies were asking me, how do you do that? They look up, they do whatever you say, but they always want to be with you. So I kind of was always, I think, just innately a leader. I knew how to meet their needs and manage their wants at a very young age. But of course I honed it and learned. And then I ended up volunteering in daycare centers, hospitals, detention centers, schools. I got some clearance from the government to go into homes of parents who were struggling. It was all volunteer work. I just loved doing it. And then, yeah, I just turned it into a business. I turned my passion into a business, right? But anyway, But anyway, that was like, I'm 63 now. That was 52 years ago. I started doing that. So I've learned a few things. And then I just pass that information along. I only know what I did. I've never studied anything else because I only teach through experience. So yeah, I don't know what anyone else out there is teaching really. And I stay away from that. I stay in my own lane. But I'll tell you something funny. This was back in 1979, 1980. I thought I was going to be a child psychologist. I just thought that's a normal thing for me to do because I was so into trying to understand children. So anyway, they kicked me out after a week because I asked too many questions because what they were teaching was garbage. This is 40 years ago. And it was just, it was so patronizing and holier than thou. And I said, that's not what I do at all. It's ridiculous. So anyway, they kicked me out, not just because I asked so many questions, that was part of it, but also the other students started asking me questions about kids. They couldn't get rid of me fast enough. Thank God. I would never have suited that line of work because I need to do, like I teach through my own experience with kids, not what someone else teaches me to teach. And some of my clients are child psychologists. Parenting is a different role from child psychology. I very clearly teach parenting and that's it. But and a lot of child psychologists struggle with parenting. I couldn't do their job. They're brilliant at the business end of kids. I'm good at the personal end with kids, the home-based stuff. So. Okay, so I'm going to look on YouTube because I keep forgetting to look at YouTube. That's my smallest platform. Like I've got 1.3 million followers, but 13,000 of them are on YouTube. It's growing. YouTube's a beast, though. We can't figure it out. It's like it's a search engine. It's not a social media place. So it's handled quite differently. But yeah, we're doing well. I'm thrilled with the following I've got on there. But that's why I'm always looking at my other platforms because that's my bigger audience, right? So, but I've got to look at YouTube here. Okay. And I like to mix up the ages. So this is a 12-year-old. Been working hard on leadership skills with my 12-year-old son. He's now becoming very controlling, trying to control everything I'm doing. How do I work through that? Okay, have you checked out the boot camp course? Because that's all about you give to get. You're giving respect to get it. And kids pick up on that. That's why that behavior board, kids usually really like that because you're on there too. You have to be accountable. You get a 12-year-old fighting you for control. It doesn't work that way when you're a leader at all. My son was 15. He would have liked to have rebelled. He had it in him. He had tantrums when he was little. He was an easy kid, but he did have tantrums. And I could tell he would have liked to have rebelled. All of his friends were rebelling when he was 15. And he said to me, he was kind of mad when he said this. He says, I could never rebel because you're too reasonable and easy to talk to. Ooh, that's a shame. But yeah, they don't rebel or backtalk a leader. They just don't because you're not giving them anything to backtalk with, right? You give respect to get it. Check out the boot camp course. It goes up to 12 years old. It probably could go up to 14, but I capped it at 12. But it can, unless they're 12 going on 20 kind of thing, you know. But yeah, it can go up to about 14. What did you do with your kids since you didn't have a behavior board back then? I would never use a behavior board. I always did in the moment discipline, which is what I teach in the boot camp course in week 4. The behavior board is just a teaching tool. When I first started my business, like back in 2007, I was teaching what I did. That's ridiculous. Parents weren't getting it and I couldn't figure out why. It's because I wasn't really focusing on how accountable you need to be. Leaders lead by example. Not by telling your kids what to do, but by showing them. That's why I was very accountable with my kids, but I wasn't leaning into that. I don't know why. I didn't figure that out. And then a year after I started my business, I invented the behavior board and put the parents on it. It changed everything. So yeah, week 4, we don't use behavior boards in the course or in coaching usually. Yeah, the behavior boards are just a teaching tool. So I dealt with everything right in the moment. Like I would never use a behavior board. There's no freaking way I want kids looking at a board. I want them looking right at me. But because I'm level 10 with what I teach, because I invented it, right? So, but when you're learning, the behavior board gives you a little bit more clout. It's something to look at. It gives you a little bit more power. It's taking some of the pressure off you, whereas I don't want that. I want it all right here. So yeah, it's a teaching tool. Okay, I got to get going. I got a lot to do today. And thanks so much for joining me. If you want to check out my link above, you can see my free behavior board, my mini toddler courses, my big boot camp course, or you can look into coaching. So anyway, thanks so much for joining me. I'll be back again, hopefully sometime tomorrow. I'm not sure. Anyway, happy parenting. Bye now.